Hello my Whoop friends. In this video I would like to introduce you to the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 which Happymodel sent to me. In this video I will tell you everything I have learned about this tiny Whoop. The positive experiences, the neutral ones and also the negative experiences. Happymodel did not give me any guidelines about what I am allowed to say and what not. That's why I will tell you everything I know. Many thanks to Happymodel and to Shogun Emperor. Make sure to also check out his YouTube channel. What I like at first glance about the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 are the large solder pads for soldering the motor wires, the small lightweight connector on the flight controller for the USB adapter, and the fact that a few spare small parts, a set of spare propellers, and a set of different propellers to test are included in the package. That is already very pleasing. What I don't like so much at first glance is the mounting and position of the 5.8 GHz antenna, which is good for video reception but not so good for durability. What immediately stood out positively during the first flights was the long flight time, which will certainly please many pilots, especially beginners. This long flight time or efficiency, however, comes with the downside that the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 does not have as much power and response as I am used to from my race whoops. The Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 flies very smoothly, but I cannot say that it feels particularly powerful or crisp. I will illustrate this later in this video with a static thrust test. Due to the high weight of the camera, the overall weight of this tiny whoop is also a bit higher than that of its competitors. That's why I would most likely compare the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 with a Beta FPV R65 Freestyle. That is roughly the same class, also in terms of motor kV. From my point of view, the Happymodel 702 28,000 kV motors are more like 23 up to 25,000 kV. I think the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is aimed at beginner and intermediate pilots who prefer long flight times over maximum power and low weight. The camera has a normal analog image which in my opinion is okay, but nothing special. The field of view is rather small, which some pilots like and others do not. All in all, the Mobula6 would actually be an ideal beginner whoop if it weren't for a few small stumbling blocks. More on that later in this video.
Advantages. The advantages of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 are the following. As already mentioned, the flight time is above average for a 65mm tiny whoop with an indoor hover flight time I tested of 5 minutes and 12 seconds, flying from 4.35 volts down to 3.30 volts with a relatively new Beta FPV Lava Lipo. This is the best hover flight time I have personally ever achieved with a 65mm tiny whoop. This hover time is probably roughly comparable to the Beta FPV Air 65 Freestyle, which is a bit lighter and is equipped with 702 23,000 kV motors. The frame of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 seems very stable and is made from very flexible plastic. However, this can also be a disadvantage. More on that later in the disadvantages. The canopy of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is also very sturdy in my experience and protects the camera lens relatively well. At the transition from the camera cable to the camera board, Happymodel or Runcam applied some silicone adhesive, which is pleasing. There is no longer a heavy USB connector on the flight controller, which results in a lower overall weight. The solder pads on the flight controller for the motor wires are large and placed with sufficient spacing and enough distance from other components. The Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is shipped with the latest Betaflight version. This is especially an advantage for those who cannot stand flying with an older Betaflight version and would immediately install the latest software before even doing the first flight. Happymodel modified the throttle curve in Betaflight for easier throttle management during hovering for beginners. This will certainly suit some complete beginners. 2 different types of propellers are included with the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3. This is very pleasing, as you can test both propellers. These are the Gemfan 1290S 3-blade propeller and the HQ Prop 31mm by 3, 1.2 by 1.1 by 3 propeller. From my experience, the Gemfan 1219S 3-blade propeller is a bit more efficient and quieter, while the HQ Prop 31mm by 3, 1.2, 1.1 by 3 propeller provides slightly better response and precision in flight. Disadvantages. The disadvantages of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 are the following. Unfortunately, the motor wires are extremely brittle. Securing the motor wires with a flexible adhesive is a must. I would even recommend doing this before the first day of flying. That is why I said at the beginning that this whoop is not 100% beginner friendly. A complete beginner does not want to secure motor wires right after buying it. To be fair, I must say that securing motor wires with flexible adhesive is beneficial for all tiny whoops with soldered motor wires and is basically mandatory for good longevity. But on the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3, the brittleness of the motor wires is unfortunately quite extreme. Another thing that helps prevent breaking motor wires is fastening the motor wires to a duck strut with dental floss. I have already made a video about this titled How to Prevent Broken Motor Cables on the Meteor 75 Pro and Any Other Tiny Whoops, which you can find on this YouTube channel. The Happymodel 702 28,000 kV motors of the Mobula6 are, in my experience, somewhat prone to slip shafts. How you can repair slip shafts I show you in a video on this YouTube channel. The larger components on the camera of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 are unfortunately not secured with epoxy. This means that in a bigger crash with high G-forces, the camera can break. That is why I recommend removing the camera and sealing the camera board with a flexible adhesive. I show how I do this in a video on this YouTube channel. Due to the flexible ducts of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 frame, propeller protection is limited. As a result, the risk of a bent motor shaft in a very hard crash is also increased. The 5.8 GHz antenna of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is very short and tends to fall off. The antenna position is good for long-range pilots, but not so good for durability. The camera of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is quite heavy, and therefore the overall weight is higher than that of other modern whoops. Neutral points. The neutral points of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 are the following. The simple 2.4 GHz wire antenna tends to break over time. To be fair, I must say that these simple wire antennas are still the standard on tiny whoops. Here as well. It is worth securing the antenna to the flight controller board with some double-sided tape and flexible adhesive. The RC link range will be smaller, but the longevity will be much higher. I recommend this modification for all pilots who do not rely on maximum RC link range. The main power cable of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is AWG22. This is okay for a 65mm tiny whoop with low to medium kV motors, but AWG20 is better in my opinion. Why this is the case I show you in another video on this YouTube channel. The main cable has the correct length and is equipped with an A30 connector. This is pleasing. From my point of view, the 702 28,000 kV motors of the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 have less kV than specified and feel more like 25,000 kV motors. The termination of these 702 motors is WYE. The PID tune is sufficient, but not particularly good from my point of view. Maybe this is also due to the low kV motors. I don't know exactly. The whoop flies very smoothly, but not super crisp and responsive. For beginners, however, it is definitely well tuned in my opinion. Observations after the first flights. When I connected the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 to Betaflight for the first time, I noticed that in the VTX tab it says VTX false and Smart Audio unknown. However, the VTX works perfectly fine and Smart Audio does as well. As far as I know, Joshua Bardwell made a video with a fix for this problem. I haven't gotten around to fixing this issue yet and also don't see any reason to, because the VTX on my Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 works fine as it is. Happymodel set the battery full voltage limit in Betaflight to 4.3 volts. Because of this, sometimes when I plug in a fully charged battery, the Land Now warning immediately appears in the on-screen display. To prevent this from happening, I set the battery full voltage limit to 4.5 volts so that the Land Now warning no longer appears when I plug in a full LiPo. Happymodel set throttle mid in beta flight to 0%, or rather modified the throttle curve. Happymodel probably did this for beginners to make the first hovering flights easier. I don't know exactly. Switching back to a stock linear throttle curve with a throttle mid value of 0.50 is definitely quick and easy for those who want it. It's also possible to do this via stick commands in the OSD menu. Unfortunately, the ELR's receiver keeps losing its bind after a few flights. I can rebind the receiver each time, but at some point it loses the bind again and I have no signal after plugging in the LiPo. I don't know exactly why this happens, and since I had a few quite hard crashes within the first 30 flights, I can't really blame anyone for this. At least one of these crashes was very hard and could have destroyed any flight controller, regardless of brand. Therefore, I'm not judging this issue. I've simply noticed it and have to accept that my Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 now has this problem. After about the 40th flight, I lost a motor screw. Motor screws need to be retightened after every 10 batteries. Otherwise, they will come loose and get lost. You can also stick a small felt pad from your local hardware store onto the motor screws to secure them. Or you can apply thread locker to the motor screws. After about 60 flights, one motor wire broke off at the flight controller. Shortly after that, another one broke off at the motor, and a third one shortly after that. The motor wires on the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3, or rather on the Happymodel 702 28,000 kVA motors, break unusually quickly. Securing them with flexible glue right from the beginning is highly recommended. It's recommended for all whoops, but especially for this one. My personal opinion on this test whoop that Happymodel sent me. I think that with a few small modifications, such as applying flexible glue to all motor wire solder joints and gluing or repositioning the 5.8 GHz antenna, as well as gluing and securing the 2.4 GHz antenna, the Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 is a good, relatively durable beginner whoop with a long flight time, which many pilots will enjoy. I think Happymodel designed the Mobula6 2024 V3 for beginner and intermediate pilots. If you've watched this video carefully and in full up to this point, you can surely understand my assessment quite well. The Happymodel Mobula6 2024 V3 flies smoothly and efficiently, and if you are a beginner or intermediate pilot, this tiny whoop is a good choice for you. However, if you are an intermediate or race pilot, there are better and more powerful alternatives. I hope this video helps show you how I came to this conclusion. The rest of the video is pretty self-explanatory, which is why I won't comment on the following chapters anymore. Use the chapters to navigate through the rest of this video. If you like this video, let me know by leaving a like, a comment, or by buying me a coffee at www.ko-fi.com. Use the affiliate links in the video description when you buy something if you want to support this channel and my work.
Some additional information can be found in the video description. Please watch my many other tutorials on this YouTube channel if you want to know more about how to modify a tiny boop or how to learn FPV flying and racing.